So why, when we have a team that is actually playing good here in Buffalo, do I feel the need to talk about a team that has been giving us Buffalo sports fans ulcers for the last 10 years? Hi, I'm Mike, and this is my channel, Mikey Chaos. Welcome. And today I'm going to be talking about Jack Eichel. The situation around the Sabres that is just the seeming continuation of 10 years of, I don't know how to describe it cleanly for YouTube. So, for anybody who doesn't know, Jack Eichel was injured last season. He played part of the season injured, but he also had a neck injury, which limited him to just 21 games in which he scored 18 points. So, that wouldn't be considered a really off season for most players, but this is Jack Eichel we're talking about, so yes, this would be an off season for him. But 22 games into the season, after 22 games, he did miss a game earlier in the season against Philadelphia, which is why he didn't miss all of them in a row. But he missed 34 games with this neck injury, and there has been a lot going on about it. With he wanted disc surgery, he wanted some experimental disc surgery, and the Sabres wanted the traditional spinal fusion. So there's a lot going on around there, and the debate on whether and which surgery he should have, whether or not he should be able to have an experimental surgery. And I just wanted to throw my opinions in on this just because there's just so much to it, and it just keeps getting more and more interesting as time goes along. And by interesting, I mean, please help Buffalo Sabres fans. But anyway, for those who don't know the situation, Jack Eichel was injured last year. He had a neck injury, and there was debate on how the both sides wanted it handled. Both sides being Jack Eichel and the Sabres management. The Sabres management wanted to go with, I believe they wanted to go with surgery. First rest and rehabilitation, then surgery, I believe is how it goes. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. But I know that if it went to surgery, they wanted to have the traditional spinal fusion surgery, whereas Jack Eichel wanted to have an experimental surgery that had been done successfully in MMA fighters, but has never been tried in hockey players. Which, in this situation, I think an experimental surgery is a little too risky for the team to be saying yes to, and I'm not even sure that they can. I'm not sure that the NHL collective bargaining agreement would allow it, and I'm not sure what the legal ramifications are and what the legal protections and all that are. But anyway, one of the reasons this is interesting to me is just because both sides really look so bad in this that I don't know how anybody can look good, and I don't know if there's any way to repair this relationship because, one, Eichel wants his surgery, the Sabres management and wanted. And when I say management for the Sabres, I do assume team doctors are the ones making this decision and then passing that along instead of just, say, Kevin Adams or the Pagulas making the decisions. But Eichel wanted this experimental surgery, which I have found out that it would potentially not even fly under regular workers' comp. So there is that to think about. There is is this covered? What happens if it goes wrong? Is there any liability? Who's liable for all this? So all that in itself is a very interesting way to look at it. And I think that there's some mistrust and missteps by both sides in this situation. But the thing that really is getting more and more interesting is how has the fact that Jack Eichel's been stripped of his captaincy affected the relationship between him and the team. That's something that I thought, okay, maybe they can get past it to a point, but it just feels like just more and more it feels like maybe it's too far gone if he's being stripped of his captaincy and there is no captain being named. I don't know if that's a sign that they hope that he'll return and retake that mantle as captain, or if they're writing him off and just holding on to him until they can get something of value for him in a trade. So that's kind of an interesting thing to look at, and that's something that really needs to be watched because who knows in that situation who holds any of the cards even. Are teams going to, in a trade, take a risk on Eichel, who has this neck injury, who, I mean, he has shown discontent with the way things are going in Buffalo. I don't know if it's discontent with Buffalo itself, but at least the losing aspect of the Sabres over his tenure here. And another thing is, do the Sabres really trust him with the fact that he hadn't been seen since his injury up until just a few days after the season ended for the postseason interviews? Do the Sabres really trust him to be captain, especially after you say, well, he has to evaluate what he's going to do for next season? There's a lot to think about about getting ready for playing wherever that may be. So there's really a lot there, and it's a really interesting saga that I know there's a lot going on, and there's a lot we haven't seen as fans, and there's a lot we're not going to know until, if we're lucky, we're not going to know until after. But there's probably going to be a lot we're not even going to know at all. And the reason this really interests me is just because of the fact that it's something that really could have been prevented. Communication. I think if there's a reason that Jack couldn't have that surgery that he wanted, the disc replacement or whatever it is that he wanted, the one that the MMA fighters have had and he has fought for, basically. Maybe if there's some way to shift the responsibility on him, maybe the liability is if the surgery does not work out, that the team is not responsible for any payments that he would be entitled to under his contract. I don't know. I don't know if there's a way around that. I don't know if it would be considered too dangerous. If maybe it, I don't know. It's just that would be something else that would weigh in on this conversation. But it feels like both sides are so disconnected that I don't know if there's any salvaging this relationship. And I think stripping him of the captaincy, no matter what the reason is just another step in that direction. So what do I think happens with Eichel this season? My personal opinion is he gets a surgery, whether it's the disc replacement or the standard fusion, the disc fusion, or I'm sorry, the spinal fusion, is yet to be seen. But I think he gets one of those surgeries, and I think at best he comes back, maybe for a little bit, right before the trade deadline. And this is best case scenario. I think he may come back just before the trade deadline, and he will have to go out there and prove that if he wants to be traded, he will have to go out there and prove to other teams that he is physically healthy enough for them to take on a risk of a contract the size of his. It's a $10 million a year contract. You need Eichel to be healthy for that salary cap number. So that's going to be the first thing the teams are going to have to look at. And the second is, did Eichel or the Sabres put themselves over a barrel where it's perceived he wants out, and Eichel or the team has a better bargaining position to the point where either Eichel is going to be sent anywhere he wants outside of his limited no trade clause, or are the Sabres basically going to have to unload him for next to nothing? And I think that 100% depends on who sees who is right in this situation, and that's going to be the biggest determination, is who is right in this situation. I think that's going to give the power one way or the other, part of it, and the other part of the power is going to be, is Eichel healthy? I mean, this is going to be a very, very long developing situation that nobody knows how it's going to turn out, but it's very, very interesting to see as the story unfolds. So that's just short thoughts on that. I mean, this is something I'm going to be following as it continues to go on, so it's not like this is all that's going to be there. This is just a short what I see of it now. But it is a very interesting situation, and I believe it's a very scary situation because the Sabres go into the 2021-22 season without their captain, who has been captain since 2018-2019. Without a real superstar on the team, Skinner has to reestablish himself. You got Olofsson, you've got Tage Thompson, who needs to step up. You got Middlestat. I mean, you got players that need to continue their growth from last season, but you're doing it without Reinhart. You're doing it without Ristolainen, even though it's mixed on whether or not trading him was a good thing. A lot of people would be like, yeah, you should have traded him years ago. Some people I don't know might be saying, oh, why'd you trade him? But the defense, I'm worried about the defense. I'm worried about the depth at forward. They regressed from having two centers to basically not really. Well, you could say three because Dylan Cousins looks like he'll be a good piece on this team. But regress from having three centers to two? And that's because Middlestat's still... I think Middlestat will fill into a center role, but it's just scary to realize that you had Eichel and Reinhart, and now you're going to rely on Cousins, who's only going to be in his second year, and Middlestat, who has taken forever to develop because of just the improper way he was handled. And the rest of the forward group just doesn't really inspire too much confidence. I mean, we know what Skinner has done, but we know what he's looked like the last few years. And we know what Tage Thompson can look like. We know what Ristolainen, and we know what a few of these guys can look like. But will it be enough to, even if not be a good team this year? I mean, I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. They're definitely not a cup contender unless something really weird happens. But they've got pieces, but hopefully these pieces get together and they grow and they start getting ready to be that good team in a couple years. But it'll be interesting to see. This regular season starts next week against Montreal. I believe it is October 14th. And so that will be the first true test. And I'm not counting on a good season. But I do want to talk about something on a better note, even though it's not the Buffalo Bills. We did that a lot. We did a whole show on the 716 Sports Podcast last night. Please check us out at 716sportspodcast.com. You can find that on any podcast station, podcast program. So just go ahead, listen to that there. But I want to talk about something interesting, just really short, and that is Justin Tucker's 66-yard kick. Field goal. Game-winning. Clutch. 66 yards. Breaks the previous record by 2 yards. I mean, isn't that incredible to live in a time where even kickers can be considered good athletes? Kicker used to be the weak guy on the team. He used to be the loner hanging around. Now these kickers, some of them are athletes. A lot of them come up playing soccer, but they're athletes. They have to do the strength and conditioning. I mean, you look at Bills fans, look at Tyler Bass, short run up, and he's kicking touchbacks through the back of the end zone. Justin Tucker, 66 yards, and he's got a strong leg as well. I mean, it's just a truly incredible time for kickers, and it was nice to see that somebody could break the record not in Denver. I mean, that kick was in Detroit, not in Denver. So that was nice to see, and that's just something I'd like to see more of. I'd like to see records broken. I mean, not because of volume of games. I don't think the 17-game thing is fair for the longevity of records, but a 66-yard kick is something that definitely will not be affected by a 17-game schedule. But yeah, that was interesting. It was fun to watch. It was funny. It was fun to see it bounce literally off the top of the crossbar and back, meaning if they had that tracker on there that some games have, with the launch angle and the kick speed and would have been good from, that would have been good from is 66 yards. It's not like a 50-yard kick would have been good from 65. No, that 66-yard kick is good from 66 yards. But that's just fun to see. So this was just my first show. Just quick thoughts on Eichel. There will be a lot more to come. It will be a variety format thing, so it won't just be me talking to a camera every week. So if you like this one, maybe continue. Like, subscribe, share. Listen to me on the 716 Sports Podcast. We record most Monday nights and drop on Tuesdays. This video These videos will come out on Wednesdays. At least that is the plan for the time being. So, hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time.